across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, hello there, good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk, the nation's favourite station. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be with you for 3 full throttle hours of breaking news, trenchant views and informed debate. You know the drill. Get involved, get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000 or WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It's Thursday, February the 6th. Here's what's coming up. Keir Starmer's secret trip to Southport outrages local residents. The furtive-looking Prime Minister is thought to have visited the scene of the horrific dance hall crime to talk to students at a sixth form college in the seaside town where that little monster slaughtered 3 little girls in the summer. Two-tier Keir is despised. Why the cloak and dagger? Why was it partly because he's reported to have flown there by private jet? Why is Downing Street so upset that Talk revealed the truth about our dear leader's covert return to the place where he pretended that the triple killings had nothing to do with terrorism, where he lied to the nation about the rioters, insisting that their suspicions were completely wrong? Why is our lying leader so hopelessly tone deaf? Why does he keep so many secrets from us? 0344 499 1000. In other news, do you recall last week when I brought you the shocking story of 33-year-old Oliver Smith, who posted a death threat to Keir Starmer on Instagram? Arrested by the cops, hauled into Plymouth police station, detained and interrogated for his alleged crime. The slight problem being Oliver is severely autistic and has a mental age of 10. His bemused parents protested about the heavy-handed treatment, but to no avail. As of yesterday, the poor guy was still facing a full investigation. We made inquiries here at Talk yesterday. Got a message back from the police. Yes, this is still an ongoing investigation. He was facing a full investigation yesterday and a potential court case. Today, in order to avoid a trial and a criminal record, Oliver's furious parents have been forced to agree to submit their son to a 16-week course on understanding behaviour online and attitudes towards politics. Once again, he has a mental age of 10. Is this Britain or North Korea? What the hell is going on here? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, I'll talk to Olympic legend Sharon Davis about Trump's triumphant ban on men competing against women in sport. No more blokes battering girls in the boxing ring. About time. Why aren't we doing the same in Britain? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, Royal Guru Kinsey Schofield on Meghan Markle's latest publicity stunt, turning the tragedy of the Los Angeles wildfires into a happy, snappy social media content for her shiny new Instagram account. Isn't that special? Unbelievable. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Thursday night together. Some of you, or most of you, probably know that usually it's called Dr. Renee tonight from 8 until 9, you know, where people phone in with all their medical problems, and GP Dr. Renee Hunderkamp brilliantly answers them all. Well, I'm afraid the doctor's not very well. The doctor is sick, so she won't be here tonight. She really is under the weather, so we wish her all the best. So we will bring you just a normal packed show. Lots and lots to talk about tonight. And for the first hour, who better to talk about our various topics with than Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Hi there. Well, I'm not feeling so international today. I'm feeling very, very focused on what the hell is going on in our country and the long list of outrages that you've just read out.
Unbelievable, isn't it? What is going on? What is going on?
Listen, like North Korea. Unbelievable.
It really is. Let's listen. We're going to get onto your brilliant story about breaking story about Keir Starmer's strange, furtive cloak and dagger trip to Southport today, which is extraordinary. I mean, why does this guy keep everything a secret? What is the matter with him? Anyway, and by the way, Downing Street are furious that we revealed it. He's the Prime Minister. He flies up there, we think by private jet, gets into a massive great Range Rover, never mind the planet. Hope Ed Miliband doesn't know. Goes to Southport, is photographed by sixth form students who he's talking to, and they expect to keep it a secret. I mean, come on. But we'll get to that in a minute because there's another story I want to talk about first. A Pakistani woman who stayed in Britain after her 5-month student visa expired, has been awarded £100,000 by the British courts because she was, and I quote, treated like a criminal. Essentially, this woman, her name is Nadra Almus, has been knocking around for years. She came here many years ago on a student's visa for 5 months and then overstayed it, didn't go back. Now, that's called breaking the law. That breaks British law. So when you break a law, that's called a crime. And the committer of a crime is called a criminal. So we have just given this woman £100,000 compensation because she was treated like a criminal. She was a criminal. What the hell is going on here? I'll bring you more details, but your just reaction to those basic details.
Well, my reaction to that is that it's not just people like that are not just breaking the law, they are breaking Britain, as are decisions like offering them or giving them compensation for breaking Britain. The reason our country is in such a dire situation is because it is one of the many reasons, and a primary reason is because we are overrun by illegal immigrants and because the legal system sees fit to do things like this. If you break the law, you overstay your visa, then you should be deported. Simple as that. Not compensated, deported.
Well, that's the heart of this saga. As I say, she came here years ago on a 5-month student visa, completely ignored the terms and stayed here, therefore broke our laws. She was eventually granted refugee status because if she was deported back to her home country, right, she would be altogether now persecuted.
Right.
She says she's a Christian, and of course this was a matter of her altogether now human rights. Now at the point where we were about to do the right thing and deport her, she was arrested and handcuffed and held at a deportation centre, an immigration centre called Yarl's Wood. That apparently breached her human rights. We eventually let her out. 2 years and 9 months after that, she had to wait under strict conditions, which were no work and no residency, and a residency at a specified address. She had to wait 2 years and 9 months until we granted her full refugee status. At Birmingham High Court, a judge has ruled that those delays showed, and I quote, a reckless disregard for her rights. In fairness, the government appealed to this feeble capitulation. They've appealed against it, and that appeal has now been kicked out, rejected, and she gets £100,000 of taxpayers' money because she was treated like a criminal. She is a criminal. We infringed her human rights. I'd like to know why. And by the way, this follows the story. I can't remember if I did it with you, but it sounds like the sort of story I would do with you. Last week, week before last, a Gambian guy who was living here, who served 6 years in a British jail for rape. He raped a woman at his apartment, at his flat in Watford, I think it was. He was awarded substantial compensation for being unlawfully detained at a deportation holding unit. The reason for this was that that he wasn't actually deported and therefore should not have been in a deportation centre. There he is. And therefore he got a six-figure settlement from this ridiculous country. All hail modern Britain. What the hell is going on here, Isabel? It's just insane.
I tell you what would go on if I were in charge. If people broke the law by overstaying their visas, or if they entered the country illegally, so far from compensating them, I would be charging them for every day that they're here when they shouldn't be, and for every cost that they run up at British taxpayer expense. And only when we start turning this around and actually coming down hard on the people that abuse our generosity are we ever going to get a grip of this situation. And unless we get a grip of illegal immigration and of all those people that take advantage of our system, then we are not going to have the quality of life that people expect for the amount of taxes they pay. This isn't complicated, folks. We have far too many people who are not contributing enough, and so the system is under way too much strain. And we do want to be able to welcome those who really need our refuge, but that is a fraction of the people who pretend to do so.
This Gambian guy got 6 years for rape. It was a horrific rape. Came out of jail. He's still here, of course. Because we, quite rightly, this country said, well, you're a rapist, you've just done 6 years, you have no right to reside in this country, so we are deporting you back to your home country, Gambia. So we stuck him in a cell, in a deportation centre. A judge ruled that there was no realistic prospect of him actually being deported, so he shouldn't have been in a deportation centre, that was an unlawful detainment. So he got more than £100,000. Substantial always means
marvelous.
6 figures.
I mean,
and he's still here. And he's still here. We should have kicked him out of the country. Not only is he still here, we just gave him £100,000 or probably a lot more. So I mean, it just beggars belief.
It does beg a belief. I mean, just think how much money that is. I don't know what form it came in, but if that came in as a lump sum, that is way more than most ordinary people can possibly hope to accumulate in a lifetime. You know, people don't have that kind of money sitting around in a savings account, do they? Not least because they pay so much tax, they can never save anything anyway. And this is so sickening, isn't it, for voters who are just working every hour that God sends in order to try to meet the ruinous cost of living in our country. And they see these people who come in, they break our laws, not only by coming in illegally, but then committing crimes. And then some idiotic judge says, oh, well, there's no hope of you ever being deported, so I'll just let you run free and also award you, while we're at it, a six-figure sum in compensation. In fairness to the judge, there probably was no hope of him ever being deported.
Well, as we subsequently found out. No, exactly. You know, they go about this Pakistani woman, £100,000. I mean, she's been... and then she says, oh, well, you know, I had to wait 2 years and 9 months before you gave me refugee status, and that's against my human rights. Well, I'd have just said you're not getting refugee status. Stick it, you know.
People have got to stop treating our country as some kind of cash point. It isn't a cash point. It is our home, and it shouldn't be abused in this way, like some kind of hotel that you don't even have to pay the night for and expect to get all your meals for free and everybody to wait on you. It doesn't work like that.
It really doesn't. And just to give the overall picture, I mean, we've got to do something about our migrant crisis. Did you notice this week they're coming across the channel again? Meanwhile, the Labour government having said, oh, the Tories, they let in 1 million legal migrants every single year. Well, they're letting in, and it looks like they're going to continue letting in about 400,000 a year. That's if we're lucky. It'll probably be more. This country's full. We're going to have 73 million people here by 2032, and I suspect we've probably got that many here already. We are literally creaking at the seams. Our infrastructure can't handle this, and yet we have all these lily-livered authorities and judges who don't seem to take this on board. Oh, you know, be kind, let them all in, come on. Britain is a generous place. Well, Britain is going to break unless we do something about this, and unless we do something serious. But I don't see Keir and Calamity Cooper cracking down anytime soon, do you?
I don't, and people are so ignorant about this. I mean, they'll always bleat that, oh, well, if it wasn't for the tidal wave of legal immigration, then we wouldn't be able to run the NHS. Do they actually realise that for everyone who comes over on a visa to work for the NHS, they also bring multiple dependents who then add to the pressure of the NHS? Brilliant. How does that figure out then?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Let me know, folks, what you think about this. You know, not only are we letting all these people stay who come here illegally or break our laws, stay over the terms of their visa, that's a crime. As I said earlier, when you break a law, that's a crime, and therefore you're a criminal. And yet this woman who broke our laws, committed a crime, has just been given by us, by this country, £100,000 because she was treated like a criminal. Well, she was a criminal. Let me know what you think about the sort of Alice in Wonderland absurdity of this. 0344 499 1000. We'll go to break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about old two-tier Keir's furtive trip back to Southport, where they don't like him one bit. In that respect, I suppose Southport's the same as the rest of the country, really. But that next, stay tuned.
Safest form of travel is aircraft. So whenever there's an incident with an aircraft or anything to do with rides, the press jump all over it. So let's get the first thing straight there. But we are so much governed by health and safety rules that everything has to be perfect. And so the same should affect other industries and local government and government.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Well, Isabel, you'll be shocked and stunned to learn that Downing Street isn't very keen on you right now. You're not in their good books because you have broken an important story, I think, certainly a relevant story, certainly a story the public have a right to know. And that is that our undear leader, the lying Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has returned to the scene of that little monster Axel Rudikapana's horrific crime. He's gone up to Southport, we understand, to make some kind of a speech to sixth form college students, and there's also a suggestion that he may have met some of the relatives, the grieving relatives of the victims. Now there he is, by a big Range Rover. That's good for the planet, isn't it? And by the way, Downing Street are not denying, so you can take this as a fact, that he flew up there by private jet. One rule for him and a different one for the rest of us. I hope Ed Miliband doesn't know just how much the Prime Minister is damaging the planet. But there he is in Southport, where they really don't like him because of his perfunctory attitude to them during the aftermath of those horrific events back in the summer, because he just went up there very quickly, didn't he? Laid a wreath of flowers, refused to talk to anyone, and then left, and they haven't forgiven him for that. Also, the rest of the country doesn't like him in terms of Southport because he lied to us. He lied to us and said that those rioters were just doing it because they're far-right thugs. They were doing it because they suspected there was something to do with terrorism here. No, absolutely not true. False misinformation. They're spreading It wasn't misinformation. It was true. So he's back at the scene of his crime, if you ask me. But I think the question we have to ask here, Isabel, is what on earth does he think he's doing? And what on earth does number 10 Downing Street think they're doing? Imagining that the Prime Minister can do something like this in secret. And why does he want to do it in secret? Shouldn't he share this kind of occasion, this kind of event, this kind of visit with the people who put him into power, the voters, the electorate, the people of this country? What's all this cloak and dagger stuff about?
Well, what is it all about? One thing that I'm not about as a journalist and as a reporter on Talk is keeping cosy little secrets to keep Downing Street happy. That's not our job in the media. And if there was some sweet little deal with other political journalists not to report on this visit, I don't know what the justification was for that, but I'm not going to play that game. He is the Prime Minister, not some kind of private citizen. Now, in terms of this secretive visit to Southport today, we clearly have very few details because Downing Street was so keen to keep it quiet. I don't believe he was speaking to students at that school. It does beg the question why on earth he held the meeting at a school. But as far as I understand it, what he was actually doing was talking to relatives of the victims of Axel Rudikapana, not actually addressing students, unless you've got some information.
No. But why, again, come back to, perhaps he was addressing the students and he was practicing his vocal speech skills. We're very pleased to be here in Southport, or something like that. But why would he keep that secret? I mean, that strikes me as quite a good thing for a Prime Minister to do, a decent thing for them to do.
Well, as I said, I don't think he was doing that. I think but what is so very bizarre is that he should seek to hold a so-called private meeting with families of the Rudikapana victims in a sixth form college and then get really annoyed when teenagers were naturally kind of quite inquisitive when they found that their school was on shutdown and a bunch of streets around the school were blocked off and there were Range Rovers and security guys everywhere. I mean, was Downing Street really expecting those teenage school kids not to kind of take to social media, not to tip off their siblings, their friends, that the Prime Minister had come to their school? come on, guys.
It's
And
just
in any
it's just
case-
amateur hour. But what you misunderstood what I said there, Isabel. What I'm saying is, let's forget about the alleged speech to sixth form college students, because I agree with you. It's quite clear he didn't do that. Otherwise, we would have details by now. You know what kids are like. He said this, he did this, he was wearing that, and he was with this. Well, it would be everywhere. So let's park that. What I meant was, if, as you suggested, it sounds plausible to me, that he went up there to talk to the grieving relatives of the victims, why would they want to be secret about that? That's a decent thing to do, isn't it?
So what I think's happened here is that Downing Street naturally feared that there would be protests if news of his visit got out. And sure as hell, there would be protests because, as you said, he is despised in Southport for very good reason. He's also despised up and down the country.
Everywhere.
Be that as it may, he's extra despised in Southport. So they wanted to avoid at all costs very embarrassing, humiliating footage of the Prime Minister being booed and barracked as he made this slightly shamefaced visit to Southport. That's what they were trying to avoid. And they would argue, not unreasonably, that there's a security issue around that. And the Prime Minister's movements are never publicised in advance, quite reasonably. For that, on that basis. That does not mean that media outlets like Talk and other media outlets should be censored or in any way reprimanded for covering an event like this well after the Prime Minister is on his way and is somewhere safe, well out of the area where he might have been subject to any kind of attack or if there was credible information, I don't know. But I think that Number 10 has no right whatsoever to be in a state of high indignation, as I understand they were. Now, I did ask them, how about just calling me? Please explain what it is that I've done wrong by disseminating this information. It's accurate. You've not questioned whether he was there. I mean, I've kind of got a photograph, so you can't really say he wasn't
You've more
there.
than kind of got a photograph. We've got a photograph. We've seen it. It's
Well, so
him.
what
He's
exactly
there.
is the issue? I mean, I'm all ears. If they want to give me a ring and explain the issue, but I've only heard through third parties that I'm not flavour of the month. Well, it's not my job to be flavour of the month with you guys, and trust me, your administration isn't flavour of the month with the country either.
Yeah, and look, there's two. This is my theory. I mean, there's two things going on here. The first is, this is a socialist administration. These are socialists. Socialists always think they can control the news media, the media agenda. That's how they go about things. We'll control this, or we won't let them do this, and they're idiots for trying to do that in what still is vaguely a free speech democracy, because journalists will find things out. You can't get the Prime Minister of this great nation to go around without being noticed. So that's why they're doing it. But the other reason that this has turned into a shambles is because they're just so amateurish. They're so amateurish. This is not professional. This is the communications department that deals with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and they're behaving like they're working for some parish council, trying to keep the secrets of their jumbo sale coming up next week or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to also point out that Talk actually called Downing Street before we ran this story, because we're not in the business of just whacking stuff out there and hoping for the best that it's correct. I mean, when I was tipped off about this visit, I was naturally quite worried as to whether or not it could be a hoax. Is that definitely Keir Starmer? Is there some question mark here? So, of course, we check these things out. And we rang Number 10, and they basically sort of said nothing to, well, what they said is, we don't really have any information to give you on that, which we all know in political journalism is a
confirmation, yeah.
And means it happened. So they had an opportunity at that point to say, look, privately, because we can deal with communications teams like that. That's part of the job. They had an opportunity to say, look, this did happen, but for the following reasons, we ask you not to report it. And at that point, a judgment has to be made. Are the reasons acceptable? Are the reasons justifiable? In which case, a responsible media outlet will not publish the information. There could be all manner of reasons. I don't know what they are. Perhaps the families had begged for it to be kept secret, in which case, once again, why hold it in a sixth form college? But in any case, I think that many media organisations will respect reasonable grounds for sitting on information, in exceptional circumstances. Downing Street didn't give us any of those reasons not to publish what we publish, and so we went ahead, and then it seems that they weren't too happy. Well, boo-hoo did ums.
Yeah, to hell with them. Who cares whether or not they're happy? It's a perfectly legitimate story, and I think probably in the end the cloak of secrecy is connected to the fact Southport just spells shame for Keir Starmer. He shamefully lied to the nation. He shamefully sent people to prison for 30 words on Facebook. He shamefully pretended that this awful triple murder, this awful attack had nothing to do with terrorism. It's this whole business of Southport for Keir Starmer has the spectre of shame, and that's why he tried to do this furtively, cloak and dagger, as if he was some sort of little crook trying to avoid detention. And, I expect more of our Prime Minister. It's just pathetic. This man never fails to disappoint, never fails. Let's wrap that one up now, and we'll come back and talk about someone else who I think never fails to disappoint, and that's the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch. That next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, before we move on to Kemi Badenoch, I'll get him on a bit later, but Craig from Yorkshire has phoned in and reminded me, and probably you as well, lest we forget, I think one of the reasons that the people at Southport detest Keir Starmer is after his sort of faux crocodile tears, very briefly laying a wreath on the pavement outside that dance hall where the horror happened, and then refusing to talk to anyone and then leaving, he flew straight back to London to host a celebrity party, champagne flowing, with the good and the great and the famous and the showbiz stars at number 10 Downing Street to celebrate his victory in the election. So they know that and they don't like it. I don't like it either. Do you?
I mean, there's nothing to celebrate now, is there? I mean, when historians come to write up this disastrous period in our history, they will point to Southport as the moment that Keir Starmer's premiership unravelled. And here's the irony: he'd only just entered number 10 when this happened. It started unravelling within a couple of weeks of him actually taking the job. And unfortunately, we're still saddled with the man and his woeful cabinet, potentially for another 4 years. And I tell you what, the country is in the mood for a revolution.
It really is.
Just wondering how on earth we can get one sooner than later.
Yeah, he because of his own incompetence, his own uselessness, and frankly, his sneaky lying antics, he enjoyed the shortest political honeymoon period known to man in political history. So yeah, as you say, 2 weeks and everybody hated him, and it's his own fault. He's the architect of his own downfall. But as you also point out, he's still the Prime Minister and will be for four. Well, he maybe not, but that lot will be wrecking the country for the next 4 years. After which, well, a number of people might be hoping to take over. One, of course, would be Reform UK, but principally, I would have thought the leader of the Tory party, Kemi Badenoch, has got eyes on that job. She, I think, is still wedded to the two-party system. Doesn't matter about anything else, you know. The British people will only ever vote Labour or Tory, so we don't really have to worry. That was her policy from the moment she got the job. In fact, she made a point of saying, well, you know, don't expect me to announce any policies for a couple of years. There's no real point, is there? I mean, I won't be in power for 4 years, so I won't be boring you with policies. Anyway, you know and I know that her shadow cabinet have been going, Kemi, we need some policies. And so she's completely U-turned on her 2-year pledge and has now announced a potential crackdown on migrants who claim benefits and an extension from 5 to 10 years before foreigners are allowed permanent residency status. Jobless and low-paid migrants would also be barred from settling in Britain indefinitely. You know, this is all okay. It's okay, but it's dancing around the edges. And in the end, she'll stay in the ECHR. She's made a point of it. She said she doesn't want to leave the European Court of Human Rights. If you don't leave the European Court of Human Rights, you will always have a migrant crisis. Nigel Farage knows that. Even Robert Jenrick knows that. Certain members of her party know that, but she doesn't. She'll stay in the ECHR. Nigel will go, we're coming straight out. He wins. She loses. This is dancing around the edge. Actually, a complete show of panicked desperation on her part is my take on it. Your thoughts?
It is completely that, and no wonder she is in a panic. I mean, polls today show quite remarkably Reform actually ahead of the pack, 4 points ahead of Labour and many, many more points ahead of the Conservatives. And yeah, sure, there's years to go, but this is a momentum that Reform has, which is terrifying for the Tories, and the hemorrhaging of money from the Conservative Party is a real practical issue for them. And I've heard from more than one source that they are struggling to pay the rent on Conservative campaign headquarters, CCHQ, on Matthew Parker Street in swanky SW1, which does beg the question, if they're going to be evicted or seeking more lowly accommodation. I was thinking perhaps an industrial estate in Slough might be more suited to their budget. Maybe Reform should take over CCHQ and actually really get its tanks onto the Tory lawn. But that aside, the problem, among many problems that Kemi Badenoch has got, is that good opposition parties want nothing more than to be in power so that they can enact their brilliant ideas. Here's the problem with Kemi. Just a few months ago, she and her party were in power, and they had been in power for 14 years. They had all those opportunities of all those years to do what she has announced today. Did they do it? No. So why on earth would anyone trust them now after those 14 years that suddenly they've had some kind of real change of heart and they're actually going to do these things? People don't want to hear it. They're not listening because those guys had 14 years to get on top of immigration, whether legal or illegal, and they did the precise opposite.
Absolutely right. She's made a sort of slight apology for that, but not enough of an apology. I mean, the Tories lied to us for 14 years. Their crimes in terms of the migrant crisis towards the end were absolutely heinous, you know, not telling us that they were letting in 1,100,000 legal migrants every single year. They didn't tell us that. And when we found out, they go, oh, yeah, well, you know, bit of a mistake. Well, they do not seem to understand the depth of feeling that people have about that. And time and time again, we get them phoning here all the time. I see it in the papers. I hear it on the TV. The people of Britain, I think it's likely they will never forgive the Tories for that. And Kemi, in her timid way, is sort of trying to address that here. But as I said at the outset, Isabel, this is just messing around the edges, isn't it?
This is no time for timidity. This is a time for Donald Trump style boldness. That is what the scale of the crisis in our country demands. So announcing little trifling little things like this, which would have actually had some impact, you know, if they'd actually done it a year ago, just isn't really going to touch the sides of the problem. And you know, when you say that people will never forgive the Tory betrayal, they're right never to forgive the Tory betrayal. And I'll tell you why, because what the Tories allowed to happen is not reversible. You know, when a party like the Lib Dems do a massive betrayal, like as with tuition fees, that is reversible by a future government. You can just change the policy on tuition fees. You can't undo the importing of millions and millions of people. We can't just deport literally millions of people. They have transformed our country for the worse. They have, many would argue that they have absolutely ruined the United Kingdom, and it is going to take a hell of a lot of work to repair that damage, and we're not going to be able to turn back the clock. So for that reason, I'm afraid the Conservatives should never be forgiven, and I don't think they will be.
I absolutely agree with you, Isabel. I think they've cooked their goose and there's no going back. One last point. I think she's really bad in PMQ's, Prime Minister's Question Time as well, partly because she's one of these politicians, one of these Westminster bubble gang types who likes to sort of demean other politicians. Not a serious politician. That's not serious. That's not serious. And most of the things they say are not serious are the issues that concern the public. Now, what she should have been doing over the last week or so is going at Keir Starmer hell for leather on these voice coach sessions, breaking the lockdown, which she clearly did. Instead, all we got was one very, very small mention yesterday at PMQs when she very unwisely began her attack, her 6 questions. First question was about the Chagos Islands. Now, what's going on with the Chagos Islands is a national disgrace, an international disgrace, in fact. A bunch of left-wing North London lawyers trying to dismantle British colonialism and sacrificing Britain's influence and power on the world stage along the way because they just hate imperialism. That guy, Richard Hermer, Lord Hermer, get him out of that job. He's a danger to this nation. But she starts off going, oh, Chagos Islands, you're giving away here. I mean, I agree with the sentiment. But Keir Starmer, you know, in a rare victorious moment during these debates, because he's not very good on his feet either, just turns around and says, well, you lot started it. James Cleverly began the negotiations to give away the Chagos Islands. So in other words, it wasn't the smartest tactic to go at Starmer about the Chagos. I mean, politics is a dirty game and you've got to play it cleverly. She doesn't.
Well, actually, I agree with some of what you said and disagree with some of it. She started off on the Chagos, and that was the right subject to go on but she wasn't sufficiently briefed to follow through. She then pivoted to a completely random topic. I mean, she was bang on the money with the Chagos Islands. People are hopping mad about that. But she allowed herself to be derailed by Starmer talking in some weird, cryptic way about how she should know because those in the know that there's a secret reason why we have to give away the Chagos, but he can't tell us what it is. And if, nod, wink, wink, you must know, basically hinting that it's some national security thing that the rest of us are too lowly and stupid to be trusted with that information. She just let that one ride. You should just let him say it and then moved on to another topic. I was thinking, well, hang on a minute. How about you stand up to him and say, I'm not having any of that on behalf of the British voter. I'm not having any of your nod, wink, wink. Tell us what it is that means that we have to give away these islands, and not only give them away, but give away 18 billion pounds potentially, which is almost as much as your mythical financial black hole.
Yeah, exactly. She should have said, well, wait a minute, Prime Minister, are you telling the Commons and by extension the people of this country that you're keeping some sort of secret about this very important national negotiation over the Chagos Islands? But I think that his suggestion there's a secret is a crock of crap. This is a bunch of left-wing lawyers who can't stand the idea of British imperialism, our colonial history, and that guy, Richard Hermer, who should not be anywhere near the Attorney General's job, is just determined to dismantle as much of British power and influence around the world as he possibly can, because, like Keir Starmer, he hates this country. And on that bombshell, we better go to break, and we'll talk about the NHS when we come back. More madness there. Stay tuned.
I mean, it is a nonsense, clearly, and it has been such a gift to the right. I mean, this shouldn't be a political issue of left or right. It should just be an obvious common sense truth. But because the Democrats have sort of gone in so hard for trans activism, it's been an open goal for Trump. So he's been able to stand there looking like a champion of women with a load of girls around him protecting their rights, because the Democrats haven't.
Yeah, that's spot on. And I mean, it really is that simple. And I'd love to say there's more nuances to look at.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, still with international editor of Talk, Isabel Oakeshott. Hi, Isabel, again. Let's talk about the NHS and the woke virus, from which our health service does not appear able to cure itself. This is madness. Now, it's well known that on a basic level, the NHS has got... It's got 800 diversity officers, and that costs £40 million a year. Now, we don't need that many. I would suggest we don't, as Donald Trump's proving, probably don't need any at all. But 800, £40 million a year, but nevertheless, they're advertising for more. They're now advertising a dozen more woke jobs, the main one of which is paying £123,000 a year. This is to something called the Associate Dean with Responsibility. Now, this is interesting. This is a major change in the diversity business. Associate Dean with Responsibility for, wait for it, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. So, EDI, not DEI. Not diversity, equality and inclusion, but equality, diversity and inclusion. I think they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. But this comes after, West Streeting and the gang saying we're going to crack down on this diversity industry in the health service. Their words were, it is out of control. And yet this, I mean, it's incurable, isn't it?
Well, good luck cracking down on that in the NHS. I mean, the whole of the culture of the NHS is absolutely riddled with this stuff. This isn't a mild infection. This is a total systemic disease right through the NHS. It is run by lefties. It is staffed by lefties. The whole thing is deep within the culture of the entire gargantuan machine. So you can try to stop these DEI jobs springing up and sprouting up, but they won't stop, not least because control over the NHS is not as centralised as Labour would like it to be. The Conservatives worked quite hard to decentralise control, giving hospital trusts quite a lot of freedom over who they hire and what their staffing choices are. So, unless you really send out a very determined edict from the top saying we're going to ban all of these jobs, then a bit of lily-livered, we need to slightly crack down on this, we're gonna do something about it, ain't gonna cut the mustard. This thing requires very, very aggressive tackling, or nothing will change.
Yeah, it needs a Donald Trump to drive a truck through it, instantly and dramatically. And yet that's not going to happen. And, I think you and I discussed this once before. I mean, what annoys me about West Streeting, I mean, he's one of the sort of more human members of this socialist cabinet. I think he's overrated. I think they're all overrated. But, if I had to pick from that lousy bunch, I'd probably say I'd rather he was the Prime Minister than Keir Starmer. But, he's the man, I'm going to reform it. I'm going to fix the NHS. The NHS is broken. I'm going to fix it. Well, I said to you before, I said, well, here's the first thing to do then. Have a look at the 3,500 middle managers who are earning £100,000 or more, many of them 200,000, 300,000. Find out what they do. I guarantee you can get rid of probably 3,000 of them. Save a fortune. Hire some doctors and nurses. Give the doctors and nurses pay rises. Get rid of 799 of the 800 diversity officers. Save yourself the best part of £40 million. Pay rises for our frontline workers. More doctors, more nurses. Hospital improvements. But any sign of that? Is he saying any of that? No. He's saying, well, we're actually writing too many prescriptions. There's too many appointments. We need to reduce appointments. No! No, you need to do something far more profound than that. He is going to be the latest in a long line of health secretaries who come in full of good intent but end up as utter failures. He's not going to fix this disastrous basket case of a health service where in some areas the word mother is banned, the word female is banned. They produced a pamphlet on pregnancy not so long ago, about 40 pages long, never used the word woman or mother. That's the kind of nonsense that this health service is steeped in. What's he doing about that? I don't see anything.
All that patients really care about is whether they can reliably get the quality of care that they're entitled to expect from the amount of billions of taxpayer money that goes into the service. And every single day, a very large number of people get fantastic care on the NHS, but unfortunately, a very large number of people don't. And the NHS literally kills a great deal of people every day. That's not me saying that. It's not political polemic. That is a fact, that there are dozens of avoidable deaths on a daily basis in the NHS. And, you know, all healthcare systems are dealing with vast numbers of patients are going to have avoidable deaths, but there are far too many on the NHS. Don't take it from me. Look at the reports from doctors, from nurses, of patients dying on corridors and nobody even noticing, of all the accidents that should never happen, so-called never incidents, which nonetheless are still happening. This thing requires radical root and branch reform. That doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be free at the point of delivery, that people shouldn't still be able to turn up and get the care they need without having to have, you know, a checkbook or a debit card in their pocket, a credit card. But there are other ways of doing this, folks. You know, many other countries provide better health outcomes and don't have a system that is identical to the NHS. In fact, nowhere has a system that's identical to the NHS, and for very good reason.
Exactly right. And, you know, people just... This wokery, this insane wokery is medically dangerous. It really is. And there are all sorts of conditions that can't be described properly unless you're able to say woman or female or pregnancy. There are all sorts of conditions to do with fatness or obesity. The NHS, having banned the word fat in case it causes offence, replaced it with the euphemism obese, has literally just recently, this week, banned the word obese because it's connected to the original word they tried to replace. So if I say obese, that means fat. Let's ban obese. How are they going to treat people when they can't use the right language? Listen, Isabel, gotta go, but thank you once again for an amazing week. Always good to have you on board. Isabel Oakeshott Talks Amazing, international editor there. Doesn't she do great work for this station and this programme? Now, listen, when we come back after the news, we're going to be speaking to Olympic legend Sharon Davis about Donald Trump's remarkable initiative, just banning men competing against women in sports. No ifs, no buts, it's all gone. That next, you better stay tuned, it's brilliant.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is hour 2 of tonight's Political Asylum, and in 20 minutes or so we're going to be picking up the case of Oliver Smith, the 33-year-old man with a mental age of 10 who now has to do a 16-week course to correct him about his behaviour online and to be more astute politically. He's got a mental age of 10. That's what the police are making him do. Otherwise, they're going to put him in court and put him on trial because he posted a death threat against Keir Starmer on Instagram. Nobody is condoning that. Nobody should do that. That's a terrible thing to do. But it's the equivalent of a 10-year-old kid doing it. You know, what would you do with a 10-year-old kid? Right, you better go to a correctional course. They will not see common sense. We've been pointing out the lunacy of this to Plymouth Police. The parents, Angie and Steve Smith, have been pointing out the lunacy of this, and yet this guy, lovely guy by all accounts, with the mental age of 3, severely autistic, has got to go to a 16-week course to correct his thinking. As I said earlier, is this Britain or is this North Korea? 0344 499 1000, taking your calls on that later on. Before we get to that, though, very important story. And this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump's incredible announcement that from now on in America, no ifs, no buts, no blokes will be able to compete against women in sport. Women's sport will be for females only. And I don't mean trans women, because trans women basically are blokes in dresses. So he said no ifs, no buts. That is all over. Fairness is now reinstated in American sport. A lot of people asking, when is that going to happen here? Let's talk to someone who has campaigned tirelessly and selflessly. She's been through a lot of hell to stand by her principles. She is a friend of this show, Olympic medalist and author Sharon Davis. Welcome, Sharon.
Hiya, Kevin. How are you? And a friend of you, I hope.
And a friend of me, and a friend of mine as well. Very much so, of course. Listen, bear with us, because I'm sure you agree, this is worth watching in full. This is Trump. This is a fantastic piece of political presentation, but also encompassing a great moment, I think, for women's sports. Take it away, Donald.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. My administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes. From now on, women's sports will be only for women. In recent years, the radical left has waged an all-out campaign to erase the very concept of biological sex and replace it with a militant transgender ideology. We're honored to be joined today by many incredible advocates for women's sports, including the brave swimmer at the forefront of this battle. And Riley Gaines is a person that I've been watching. With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. We are restoring sanity and common sense, defending the rights and safety and pride of the American people, including our great, great, great female athletes.
I mean, you know, that is political presentation. You never get that on this side of the Atlantic. But I think that moment deserved that razzmatazz. I mean, that must, for you personally, Sharon, that must have been a marvellous moment to witness.
Do you know, Kevin, it's been 10 years coming. So I've been speaking about this since 2015, when the IOC changed the rules without any science, without any grounds for it whatsoever. When they're, you know, the whole reason of having men and women's sport is because we are different. And that's why it was created in the first place. Not a single piece of peer-reviewed science has ever supported any of the things that have happened in those 10 years. We cannot suppress testosterone to make any difference. Once the male has gone through puberty, it's like boiling an egg. You can't unboil it. but also even bone structure is very different. You know, Q angles, hip to knee angle in a woman is much larger, which means we get more knee injuries. We can't get as much cadence, so therefore we can't get as much power out of our legs as males can. We're not as tall. We don't have such big hands and feet, so our paddles aren't so big. The more explosive the event, the bigger the advantage if you're biologically male. And it's just been incredibly, incredibly unfair. And women only have 4% of the sports pie. You know, 4% of all the money that comes into sport goes to women, 96% goes to men. And then we were told this tiny little piece of the cake, we're not even allowed to have fair or safe sport anymore. And of course, at the Olympics this summer, we watched men being allowed to go into a boxing ring, which I believe is criminally negligent. I really do. I mean, it was extraordinary for me to have to be able to talk about it. And there were times when I literally just dared the BBC to sack me because they kept telling me that I wasn't allowed to have an opinion.
No, I remember that, Sharon, because we invited you onto this show, and you bravely came on, even though the BBC had hired you to commentate on the Paris Olympics. And I guess you risked your job there. But in a way, even the BBC spotted, well, we can't really fall out with Sharon over this. But to go back to what you were mentioning there and what the President Trump, referred to, you know, that no more will we see the spectacle of men battering women. That was a really, really upsetting moment, wasn't it? Back in the Olympics, that Italian boxing lady came in, and I think it was an Albanian bloke, stepped into the ring. One punch just knocked her down like a deck of cards. The Italian lady crying afterwards. And there was another event, you know, so there were several male boxers were allowed to batter the hell out of women in the Olympic Games. Now, Donald Trump has put a stop to that in America. I mean, technically, I'm not sure whether it can still go on in the Olympic Games, because the problem with the Olympic Games and the problem with Britain is absurdly, unfairly, and ridiculously, we're still doing it on a sport-by-sport basis.
Absolutely. That's our problem. So the good news is, at the moment, we've got candidacy going on for the new president of the IOC. So Thomas Bach, at long last, is going, thank goodness. We're hoping, obviously, Seb Coe will get that position. However, every single one of those candidates that are standing for election has said publicly they will protect the female category. So not only now have we got, obviously, Donald Trump in LA, in America, which the games are going to be in 3 years' time, we've got IOC candidates saying that they'll protect the female category, which is great news. But you were right, in this country, we still have 50 sports that don't protect the female category. Self-ID, any male can identify into those, some of them including combat sports. And then I think the worst offenders, golf, cricket, football, and tennis, what they've done is they've protected 1%. So they've turned around and said, we'll protect elite female athletes, but 99%, all of the young people, all of the pathways, all of the recreational female athletes, you're not worth protecting. We're only going to protect these ones over here. And that there's no protection for them. So to me, that is absolute direct sex discrimination, because how can you say one group of women are worth protection and one group of women are not worth protection? So I'm hoping this year maybe to set up a foundation and to find a way to, if I have to sue each one of these governing bodies to, you know, to try and stop this. But let's hope there can be some sense and we can follow America and say, no, we need to protect the female category. I want everyone to do sport, Kevin. I've always promoted sport and the benefits that sports bring. But it has to be fair and safe, you know, and women are deserving of that respect, the same that men have still got that. Men have never lost any of their sporting opportunity.
As somebody pointed out to me earlier, you never hear it the other way around, do you?
No,
sort of women who decide that they're men and going to compete against the men.
Well, do you know what's really fascinating is that during the Olympics in Paris, just so that you can understand this point, because it's a good point. We had a trans man, so we had a female that identifies as being a man. She was a boxer. She hasn't taken any testosterone, because if she had, that would make it illegal. Guess where she opts to fight?
Go on.
In the female category.
Of course.
Now, none of the females have an issue with this, right? This is the thing which is
she's a female, so
because she's a female and she's not taking any banned drugs. Nobody cares what she wears or what she wears or what she calls herself. So we're very inclusive. That's what needs to happen in the men's category. Turn up wearing whatever you like, call yourself whatever you like. but just compete fair.
And have you had any dealings with the newish Culture and Sports Secretary, Lisa Nandy? Because, you know, I've seen her on the TV and I've seen her on radio and stuff being quizzed on this. And frankly, she seems very uncomfortable. She stumbles. She can't really deal with the question because she continues to preside over and effectively endorse the crazy system we have in this country, that this issue is decided on a sport-by-sport basis, as if you could somehow say, well, it's unfair for women to compete against men in boxing, but it's okay in tennis. That's insane. Exactly. It has to be across the board. So
it's ridiculous, isn't it? We know it's ridiculous.
But what is she doing about it, Sharon?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the thing that's really frustrating is that they don't even make contact to say, can you come and talk to us and explain this to us, you know, and show us the science, or explain what it's like as an athlete who's been around elite sport for 50 years, because they're not interested. They literally just want it all to go away. They want to pass the buck to the individual associations. The individual associations are petrified as well. So then they do this compromise, which is protect the elite and don't protect everybody else. And what we also find, and it's really good to see, you know, Riley there, but us swimmers, I think we had a Leah Thomas. So we had this 6'4" bloke who was an extremely mediocre male athlete in distance freestyle in America, who was only 550th at university level in America, who then transitioned and the following year won the national college championships, which is pretty much the best in the country because that's where all the athletes are training, to beat 2 American Olympic silver medalists, you know. And at 6'4", it was really obvious that this person had a huge unfair advantage, and that has helped swimming. But then the World Aquatics, who then protected the female category, said, okay, we're going to create a trans event so that, you know, everyone feels included. Not one single athlete turned up.
Yeah, they don't want to do that.
This isn't about inclusion. This is about advantage, right? This is about males wanting to transition to the female category and having an unfair advantage. So we must find a space for everybody, but it simply just needs to be fair. Well,
you and I right now, I'm sure you've already done it, but I want to call on this government to follow in Donald Trump's excellent footsteps. You know, this guy, whatever you think about Donald Trump, and I must admit I kind of like him more every single day, this was a magnificent thing to do. This was a great thing to do for females all over the world. And don't you wish our government would follow suit? Well, let's call on them to do it now.
I know, I would love it. It's not going to happen though, Kevin, is it? Let's all be really, really realistic about this. It's not going to happen. And you know what's really quite, I suppose, demoralising about all of this is the Democrats would turn around and say that they're a party of feminists. Well, they threw women under the bus. You know, and this isn't just about women's sport. This is about women's privacy, women's award ceremonies. It's about all things that women have fought for decades to try and get some sort of parity, which, you know, we still don't have, but we've been going in the right direction. So they have not stood up for women in any shape or form. And it's really, really sad to see that happen. Yes, I mean, 3,500 victories have been lost, 11,000 races, over $1.5 million worth of prize money have gone to males in women's sports event. And that's not including all the people that have been injured. And we've had loads, dozens and dozens of injured, you know, female athletes.
So our government, Lisa Nandy and the gang, I mean, they're basically afraid of the trans lobby, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're just afraid to make any sort of decent decisions, aren't they? You know, anything that's the cool, you know, that's just literally radical. Everything is sitting on the fence and passing the buck all the time. And I just think now that Donald Trump has done this, you know, and the thing that I don't really get is this is very, very supported. The general public are hugely behind this. This isn't like people are going, well, you know, I don't know. If you do any form of polling, even inside the Democrat Party, it still comes out in the 60s, 70s and 80% that supports.
Because it's common sense, Sharon, because it's common sense.
So if you're even trying to work to your voters, this is a good move, which is why I don't really understand why they don't do it. But, you know, it would be lovely if Lisa Nandy was to say, look, come and have a conversation with me, explain everything with me, what can we do? And I would love to see them just protect the female category and say, right, no, women deserve their fair and safe sport.
So the Secretary for Culture and Sport has never reached out to you to discuss this?
I spoke to the previous government. I had quite a lot to do with Kemi. I was trying very hard with Kemi, and Kemi was trying very hard to push things through. We were very close to actually clarifying the Equality Act, which would have made things very, very easy for us to be then legal about things. And then literally because the election was called very early, that just didn't quite happen. So, but this government, not a word.
Before you go, Sharon, and thanks as always for joining me here. It's always good to talk to you, and you know I'm a great admirer for what you've been through to get to where we are now. Explain again, reiterate what you were saying about potentially suing every sport. Was that what you were going to say?
So what I'm thinking about doing is maybe sorting out a foundation. You know, you mentioned that it has affected my work. Absolutely, it's affected my work. Would I do it again? Absolutely, I'd do it again. I mean, the reason I'm so outspoken is I competed during the East German era, and I had to race, you know, young girls that were pumped full of testosterone.
I remember.
So it was a different process, but it was the same end result. You know, I was racing people that I couldn't beat no matter what I did because they had male advantage. I just did not want to see another generation of young girls lose out. So that's why I speak out. So as we're not really getting anywhere with these organisations, particularly as I said, sort of cricket, football. I mean, there's at the moment 80 trans-identifying males in the women's FA game. And women get 6 times as many knee injuries. Males kick 50% harder. So all those girls are literally risking their sporting career playing against men, all right? Yeah. So, and if they do say they have a problem, the FA at the moment are banning them for 6 games.
Yeah, do you remember the autistic girl, wasn't it? The 17-year-old last year lining up.
You're not even allowed to say, I have a problem. Yeah, well, I don't want to play this game if I have to play a game against a male. You're not even allowed to say that. So I'd like to legally do something about that, because I think, to me, this is extreme discrimination, and it needs to stop.
And cut out the absurdity of what happened with that autistic girl. She was a teenager, 17 years old, you know, didn't have much of a filter, so brilliantly just sort of called it like it was lining up against this women's football team, and the opponent, one of the opponents, had a beard. So she said, she went, "Are you a man?" And for that, she got a 6-game ban.
How can we be living in a world where it's an offence to ask if you're going to be playing against a male in a sport?
I mean, I'm not sort of a doctor or medically qualified, but mostly people with beards, they'll turn out to be men, won't they?
Well, if they're taking a lot of testosterone, sometimes they can be girls too. I noticed that in the East German era. But
I'll bet you did. Yeah, I remember those days. You were always coming second, and you did damn well to come that high up in the ranks, considering you were basically competing against chemicals, weren't you? Not human beings.
And do you know what was really sad about that? The worst thing about all of that was that those girls had no choice. I have never had an issue with any of those girls. They were behind the Eastern Bloc. They were literally, you know, used as lab rats. But the IOC knew. They had people that defected with those little blue pills. They were unbelievably successful in the women's events. They hardly won anything in the men's. They looked and sounded like men. They came from nowhere, competed on the Olympic stage and won, having never seen them ever before in our lives. Everybody knew, and the IOC let that happen for 20 years, and many of those girls have died. So yes, it's disgraceful, really, what's been allowed to happen.
And hopefully the IOC will finally see sense and do what Donald Trump's done for the next Olympic Games, because they're going to be interesting, because it's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so I think we can safely say that they probably will be protected in Los Angeles as they stand at the moment. Yeah,
with old Trump around, you can count on that. Sharon, fantastic to talk to you as always. You're always welcome on this show. Sharon Davis there, MBE Olympic medalist, should have been a gold. She got several silvers, I believe. Didn't quite get them for the reasons she's just explained. Your thoughts. Why don't we do the same as Donald Trump? And what on earth are we doing? Why are we still letting men compete against women in women's sports? Doesn't that strike you as sort of ever so slightly unfair or incredibly unfair? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Next up, we're going to return to the case of poor Oliver Smith, the 33-year-old guy with a mental age of 10 who now has to do a 16-week course to correct him because he posted something nasty online about Keir Starmer. He needs to be corrected for his political thought and for his online behaviour. He's got the mental age of a 10-year-old. What is going on here? That next, stay tuned.
So you have more of an international welfare state. And I think that the Conservatives have a great deal to answer for, especially in the last parliamentary term. Immigration skyrocketed to unprecedented levels. And Alex, all too often we were told that our immigration system attracts the brightest and the best. We have a rigorous, highly selective immigration system. And that is what people wanted, especially those who voted for Brexit back in June 2016. That was not the immigration system that was introduced.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, you remember last week we brought you the story of Oliver Smith, 33-year-old guy, happy guy, lives with his family down near Plymouth. He's 33 years old and is severely autistic and has the mental age of a 10-year-old. He posted something silly on Instagram, so a death threat to Keir Starmer. Cops came round. Parents, Angie and Steve Smith, said, look, you know, it's a silly thing to do, but he's got the mental age of... Oh, well, you know, we'll have to phone the station. So they go and check with the station. The station officer said, well, no, you've still got to bring him in. So he's arrested, taken to Plymouth Police Station, detained, interrogated. His dad went down to try and persuade the cops to cease. No. So he was detained and in the end released pending further investigations. Ever since then, we at Talk have been trying to find out exactly where this investigation lies. Does he still face a potential court case? Will he be charged? Because we're saying, well, come on. You know, this is the equivalent of doing it to a 10-year-old kid. No. The case continues. As of yesterday, we got a message from them. The investigation continues. We are still investigating this. So the case was live yesterday. Today, finally, the clouds parted to an extent in that Angie and Steve, Angie, the mother of the victim, was told, well, look, we can do a deal. He can be spared having to go to court and be tried and potentially convicted and get a criminal record if, only on the basis of this, that he attends a 16-week course to correct his online behaviour and to, shall we say, streamline his political outlook. We go, hang on a second, again, I've got to say it again, he's got a mental age of a 10-year-old. But the poor guy now has to do this. Angie and Steve, I completely sympathise with them. They don't want him to have to go to court. But it's clear that if he didn't agree to do this course, it's with a key worker, apparently, has to go once a week for 16 weeks, for quite a few hours. He's got the mental age of a 10-year-old. Well, listen, Angie's going to join us in a little while, but I thought we'd get the police angle first from an old-school copper who dates back to those distant days when policemen had common sense. He's our friend, ex-Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Welcome, Mike.
Yes, hello, Kevin. I'm back in the UK now, so yeah. This is really bad, isn't it? This is
just unbelievable, stupid. Isn't it? Yeah, it's stupid. That's what it is, isn't it? Your thoughts?
Right, so there is a total lack of common sense here. We saw it from the very start, where the two officers who came to the house seemed to have thought, this isn't right. You know, this is a 33-year-old man who's mentally impaired, and as you said, has got the mind of a 10-year-old. They consulted with the supervisor who said, no, bring him in. And where I think this comes from is that Devon and Cornwall police last year were inspected. Every police force is inspected every 3 to 4 years. And they were noted as being inadequate in crime detection. And they were told to solve more crimes. Now, most people would think solving crimes, you know, catching a thief, dragging a burglar out of a house. But no, there's all sorts of other rules. And outcome 22 is this deferred charging here. And it refers to a contract. Now, how do you have a contract with a 10-year-old boy? Also, or somebody with the mind of a 10-year-old? Who is paying for this? Because we know people who are listening and watching will have been on these speed awareness courses, and they're an example of this, and they force you to pay. So who's paying for this? And really, what is going to be achieved here? Because if there are other people on this course, they're not going to achieve anything if there's somebody with the mind of a child on it. And my advice to the parents who seem loving and decent people is to consult with a solicitor to get them to write to the police force to say, this is the medical evidence of our son, who is going to pay for this, who is the decision maker, because this is not right. It achieves nothing for the community. It achieves nothing for Oliver. It achieves nothing for anybody, apart from the police who get a tick in the box saying you've detected one crime.
It's just, it beggars belief, as I said earlier. What is this, Great Britain or North Korea? Well, let's now bring in well, she told us earlier, she's absolutely furious, and I can understand it. Oliver's mother, Angie Smith. Welcome to the show, Angie.
Thank you. Sorry about the background noise. I've got two King Charles Cavalier puppies who are running riot.
I've got a spaniel, so
I know you.
I hear you. I hear you. I understand your pain. But seriously, I mean, you must have been telling the police until you're blue in the face. My son has a mental age of a 10-year-old. I mean, how have they responded to you when you've said this? Oliver now has to go once a week, never mind your dogs, has to go once a week for 16 weeks to have his political opinions sort of examined and, shall we say, reprogrammed, and also to learn about online behaviour. I mean, you know Oliver. How much is he going to learn? I mean, it's the equivalent of telling a 10-year-old to do that, right?
Well, I mean, my understanding of it is now is that once a week, the first meeting has to be at the police station. And, you know, that upset me because really I said to Ollie today, before Steve took him off to his day centre, I said, don't worry about it. The police are coming out today. I'll sort it. And I thought that would be it, they'd understand that we'd had a word with him. But no, he basically, I mean, I fought it at first, but Steve in the end sort of talked me into it, saying that we'd better go for the course because we don't want him going to court. Yeah, that'd be traumatic for him.
So you're given basically a stark choice. Either you sign up for this course, which will look into Oliver's behaviour online and presumably try and teach him to, shall we say, be a little less extreme in the future. I mean, as I say, no one is condoning a death threat to the Prime Minister on Instagram, but in Oliver's case, you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, silly thing to do, but, you know, it's like a 10-year-old doing it.
But actually, when sorry to interrupt, but when I was speaking to the police officer today, one thing that I hadn't realised, because I didn't, you know, as you know, we discussed it was probably better for Steve to go last week with the police officers. What I hadn't realised was that actually he didn't actually make threats. He was warning Keir Starmer that people would do A, B and C and D, you know, if you carry on behaving like this. So he wasn't even actually making direct threats to him. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, but in the end, Angie, I mean, point taken, but in the end, because of Oliver, of what Oliver is, you know, a severely autistic guy with a mental age of 10, it doesn't seem to me to be that important what the hell he put on Instagram. A sensible person would say, oh, well, look, Angie, for God's sake, try and stop him doing that anymore.
We've banned him now.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing.
Course,
I mean, he's had his punishment. He's lost all his online stuff anyway.
Of course you have, but this is not relevant to this story. This is a story of the police being intransigent, automaton and ridiculous, frankly. But of course you made the decision to submit Oliver to this course because the alternative that they made clear to you was if he doesn't sign up for this course, he goes to court, faces a trial, and then, of course, a potential conviction and criminal record. That was your alternative, right?
Yes. Yeah,
That's just... Mike, your thoughts on that? It's just absurd, isn't it?
It is absolutely absurd. I mean, the idea of these schemes is if you've got some teenagers who go out, steal from a shop or do some vandalism and they've never been in bother before, and you don't want to ruin their life by giving them convictions and cautions, this is the thing to do. First-time offenders, young adults and whatever else. It is not meant for people who are mentally impaired or whatever it is, severely autistic. Common sense dictates that if a 10-year-old did this, the mum or dad would ban them from the internet, and this is what they've done. But what I can only recommend to Angie is that you don't be bullied, because what happens here, there's on the internet there's this, and I've seen people in the police forced into taking cautions. You must seek legal advice. You saw recently there was a case recently with the ex-Royal Marine, who was charged with all sorts of making wicked threats, and he posted something on Facebook. He went to trial, and of course a jury found him not guilty. Most people fold the cards at this point. You've got to challenge the police. This is not what British policing is about. British policing is about being fair, catching criminals and making places safer. This is doing none of those things. So you must seek legal advice. Don't just fold and go to this. And make sure you know who's paying for this, because you don't want to end up with a big bill at the end of it, because they do charge people, as we see with speed awareness courses. So you're best to speak to a friendly lawyer. I'm sure there'll be a lawyer who'd engage with this, and he would find out the facts. Please do that.
Yeah, listen to Mike there, Angie. Now, listen, we'll talk to you off air, but we've had several people who've followed your case that we've been highlighting here on Talk, and they have all offered to pay for any legal fees that you
No, don't worry.
incur.
No, that's very kind of them. But, I mean, we will seek legal advice.
I don't think Oliver should have to go to this course. I know at this moment, I think you've made exactly the right decision. You can't have the poor guy facing the potential of a trial and a criminal conviction.
Well, this is what Steve is saying.
But you've got to listen to Mike, though. Mike is right. He shouldn't have to go to this course either. This case should be dropped and filed under common sense. Do you see what I'm saying, Angie?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah. Yes.
Listen, we are going to talk off air because I might be able to help you. I mean it. Look, how is Oliver? How is he?
No, he's fine. We've basically protected him, as we always do. You know, we've explained to him that, he's got nothing to worry about, because deep down I know he doesn't have, because, we've made it clear to him that what he did was wrong. Yeah. Like I said to you the other day, we've always made that clear to our children. You do something wrong, you have the consequence. So he's lost his online access now. So
that's probably for the best. But just to, I know I get to the risk of repeating myself, Mike. I mean, this is the equivalent of sending a 10-year-old. On a 16-week behavioural course to look into his online behaviour and his political outlook and his political behaviour. That's just crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
It is. So in this country, the criminal age of responsibility is 10 years old. But 10-year-olds are only dealt with for the most heinous crimes, as we saw with the Jamie Bulger case and the like. And it just reflects this bean counting that's going on, that Oliver will just become another statistic, which is costing the taxpayer a load of money and is achieving absolutely nothing. The time spent that the police officers sat in that police station trying to negotiate with Oliver, he probably don't understand what they're on about, they'd be far better patrolling Plymouth Town Centre and catching some of the scallywags who cause misery there every day. But that's old-fashioned British policing.
Sorry, can I just say, I did make that very point to them today. As I said, you've been sat here, in our front room for 2 hours, discussing all this when you could be out solving real crimes.
Yeah. Well, you know what they're doing, Angie? They're doing what modern cops love to do. They love to patrol the tweets, but not patrol the streets. That's the way it goes in modern policing. Mike's exactly right. They'll be very proud of this because it will be ticked against hate crimes solved. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. And a crime against common sense.
Yeah, also, sorry, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's just also, you know, I made the point that if anybody's going to be arrested, it should be me, because I don't like Keir Starmer particularly, and
Yeah, but you haven't posted any death threats, Angie.
I haven't posted any death threats, no.
And you wouldn't. And the only,
no, I wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't.
And
but,
the only reason Oliver's done it is like 10-year-olds that tend to be, you can be a bit silly, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, and he probably listened to me sounding off a bit about my disagreements with some of the...
Yeah, well, that's it. That's neither here nor there. This is ridiculous, and it shouldn't happen. So,
I guess it's a stage where you can't. You're scared to say anything in your own.
Well, exactly right, exactly right. And we haven't stopped. We haven't finished yet. So, Angie, we will talk off air. In the meantime, thank you very much. Our best to Ollie, and thanks as always to Mike Neville. Right. Well, I mean, your thoughts on? I'm lost for words. Well, you know, I'm not exactly lost for words. You know me. I'm never lost for words. But I kind of am. So let me know what you think about this. Is this British policing gone mad? As I said, where do we live, folks? Is it Great Britain or North Korea? 0344 499 1000. We're going to break now. When we come back, we'll take a couple of calls.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'll read you a quick text because it was referring to, you remember we had Sharon Davis on just not so long ago, and this is from Anna. She says, my son was an elite swimmer for 10 years. He retired 4 years ago, but could still now drop into the pool and hammer our elite females in the 100-metre freestyle without even much effort. I mean, that is the difference. I mean, this isn't about, oh, men are much better than men. Men are just stronger physically. There's nothing you can do about that. I think it was, I think when Serena Williams was just like this unassailable #1 in women's tennis, no other woman could touch her. It was worked out that if you ranked her in the male tennis rankings, she would be about 765th in the world. She was the best woman in the world by a country mile. But you know, in the men's tennis, she couldn't have begun to compete. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. And so a good point from Anna there. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's ridiculous allowing men to compete against women just because men put on a dress and say, I'm a woman, I identify as a woman. Well, you can identify as a woman, you can be a trans woman. It doesn't make you a woman. You'll never be a woman. That's the way it is. I'm sorry, but them's the facts, science-wise. Right, let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Keith in West Sussex. Hello, Keith. You want to talk about immigrants? What would you like to say?
Yeah, I do. I want to talk about the citizenship.
Yes.
Now, if you're an illegal immigrant and you're given a free house and your expenses paid and a few quid at the end of the week and you creep out at night, do a bit of car cleaning, what do you care about being a citizenship? You'll just carry on for the rest of your days, copping it all for free.
Well, I mean, I absolutely take your point. That's what I meant when I was talking about Kemi Badenoch with her announcement, just messing around the edges. But immigrants, migrants, they are interested in citizenship because once you get citizenship, you get full rights. And you can never be kicked out of the country. You get full benefits and full welfare rights and so on and so forth. So they are interested because it absolutely consolidates their residency in this country. The point is that we have very, very lax citizenship requirements. I mean, the fact that people can become citizens in 5 years is a bit ridiculous, to be honest with you, but they can at the moment. She wants to extend that. So, I mean, I take your point, but there is an interest on the part of migrants in becoming citizens because once they become citizens, they're home and dry.
Yeah, but I think they're home and dry anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, basically, if you're an asylum seeker, come across on a boat, you're home and dry the moment you step onto the beach.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point. But, yeah, I mean, you do make a good point that when they come here, they're not going, oh, well, when can I become a citizen? They're just saying, which hotel are you going to put me in? How much benefits am I going to get? 45 quid a week, is that all right with you? Oh, that'll do. Free food, okay for you? Yeah. Free dentistry, free medical treatment, free doctor? Yeah, I like that. Free lawyer to fight your case to stay here? Oh, that's nice. So that's what they're interested in at the moment. But in the future, they do have their eye on citizenship. But you make a good point, Keith, and thank you for your call. Keith in West Sussex there. And we've got time, I think just briefly anyway. Let's go to Peter in Croydon. Go on, Peter.
Hello, Kev.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about needless deaths with Isabel.
Yeah.
There's a massive issue in this country with dehydration in the elderly because when you get older, I suppose about in the 80s and 90s, your thirst mechanism goes.
Is that right? So you stop being thirsty?
Sorry?
You stop being thirsty? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they are thirsty, but they don't realise it.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So you stop knowing that you're thirsty, so you don't drink enough and you dehydrate, yeah?
Absolutely, and I've had a neighbour die of it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, she went into the hospital. She was fine. She was just, she didn't eat herself properly. She didn't look after herself. But when I went in to see her, she was absolutely gasping, and no one was there to give her some water.
Yeah,
anyway,
really?
3 days later, she was dead, Kevin.
Well, that's the NHS for you. Wonderful service as usual, yeah.
And my mother, she went into a hospital. She had a problem with, she kept on being dehydrated and hydrated, fluids here, fluids there. And she went into a care home. Now, I mentioned about the dehydration, and she said, well, we're putting your mum on a fluid watch, which they do not do in hospitals. They do in care homes.
But not in hospitals. Well, they should start doing it in hospitals, shouldn't they?
Well, they won't, because, I mean, I mentioned, I replied and I made a complaint, and their complaint was really thorough, and I said, well, you were thorough, but what about the issue with the dehydration in the elderly? And they didn't come back to me.
Yeah, I bet they didn't. That is typical NHS. So listen, Peter, interesting point. Thank you for highlighting it. I've got to go now, though, but please call again. Peter in Croydon. When we come back, we're going to be talking about civil servants. The government is saying, civil servants have got to start saving money, and if they don't, they could face the sack. Yeah, right, that's ever going to happen with a Labour government. But that seems to be the situation. Rachel Reeves desperate to save money and get this economy back on track. The economy that she ruined with her budget last October. We'll talk to Robert Taylor about that after these messages. Stay where you are.
So you have more of an international welfare state. And I think that the Conservatives have a great deal to answer for, especially in the last parliamentary term. Immigration skyrocketed to unprecedented levels. And Alex, all too often we were told that our immigration system attracts the brightest and the best. We have a rigorous, highly selective immigration system. And that is what people wanted, especially those who voted for Brexit back in June 2016. That was not the immigration system that was introduced.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, let's talk about the civil service, shall we? Now, Rachel Reeves, you know, she tanked the economy with that ridiculous... Oh, look, LA wildfires. That's good, isn't it? We're not talking about LA wildfires now. We're talking about civil servants. Now, Rachel Reeves tanked the economy with that ridiculous budget last October, the £40 million tax grab, the biggest tax grab in modern British history. And then they go, growth. Oh, the economy. We're committed to growing the economy. You killed it stone dead. You can't have a budget like that and then grow the economy. Even I know that. And old Rachel from accounts is supposed to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Unbelievable. Anyway, she's so desperate now. She is telling civil servants, Whitehall, that you must all now be committed to saving millions of pounds because, of course, we all know that civil servants waste zillions of pounds on this, that and the other. And if they don't do this, they might be sacked. Yeah, that's going to happen, isn't it? Labour sacking civil servants for not launching an efficiency drive. Oh, by the way, oh, look, there goes a pig flying past the studio. Here we are on the 17th floor. Yeah, that's likely. Let's talk to columnist for the Daily Express and the Telegraph, Robert Taylor. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, Kevin.
Yeah, this is a desperation measure by the Chancellor and indeed the Prime Minister, because they tanked the economy. One of the reasons she thinks she might be able to get our hopeless finances back on track is by getting the civil service to stop being quite so wasteful and save zillions of pounds, and therefore everything will be tickety-boo. And they've been warned that unless they play the game here, they might be sacked. Labour aren't going to sack a single civil servant for this, are they?
Well, I doubt it very much. And the whole ethos of the civil service is about employing people. They're desperate to avoid redundancies. And the unions, of course, are particularly desperate to avoid redundancies. That's part of their remit to do so. But it's quite amusing in a way, Kevin. It was obviously a very serious problem, by the way, but it's quite amusing in that there are now 1 million more central government civil servants now in 2025 than there were in 2016. 1 million more. There were only 3 million of them in 2016. Now there are close
These are civil servants. How many civil servants have we got? Millions?
So the latest figure that I saw today is 3.79 million.
Whoa. You said we've got 3.79 million civil servants?
Public sector work deployed by central government is what I understand. That's up 1 million since 2016. And now the government is saying, well, we've employed all these people to deal with Brexit and to deal with the pandemic, both of which are now over. But of course, we're not going to sack them because that's not what we do. So, like you, I'd be very surprised if we get any redundancies at all, despite this new measure.
Yeah, Rachel Reeves has told department heads that she wants them to find savings of 5% from all their budgets. I mean, this is desperation stuff because she needs to find cash and she needs to find it fast. But turning to the civil servants, turning to Whitehall, I mean, you might as well ask me for the money. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. And sacking civil servants for not making efficiency drives is anathema to Labour. They never would do this. The only thing that's going to happen to civil servants under Labour, as it always does, is they will increase in number. And as is the new way, fewer and fewer of them will ever turn up for work. They'll all work from home.
Work from home is a massive deal, and there's lots of studies out there to say that it affects productivity. And then you've also got the sickness culture, which, again, the figures I've read is that there are 3 times as many sick days taken in the public sector as in the private sector, and that amount grew 7% during the pandemic. Just one more figure for you. According to a latest survey by Kantar, this is across the economy as a whole, not just public sector, 9 million people fake sickness or own up to faking sickness. And this is a particular problem in the public sector. No one's saying that everyone in the public sector who takes sickness days is fake it, but there is a problem with that. So that is work from home and sickness, 2 big problems affecting productivity.
Yeah, Pat McFadden, the Cabinet Office Minister, said it is vital that senior leaders are not just encouraged, but held responsible for every pound of taxpayer money that they spend on behalf of the government. Well, great, fine words, but this isn't in Labour's DNA to attack civil servants. They won't do this at all. And you wonder how they will go about it. What they should be doing if they want savings in the civil service sector is getting rid of a great many of them. And as you also imply, I mean, Rachel from Accounts' big problem is Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary's massive problem. That is that there are more than 9,300,000 people of working age between 16 and 64 who just don't work. They're economically inactive, and millions of them are being paid welfare. Some of them, many of them, millions of them, for the rest of their lives, and they're only 25 or something. If the government doesn't get a grip of that, this find efficiency in your departments, I mean, that is just chump change, isn't it?
Well, indeed, and we know that productivity has been a huge problem in the public sector, really since 1997, and particularly since the big recession of 2008 to 2009. We've flatlined in terms of, despite all the advances in technology, which have improved productivity in the commercial sector so much, in the public sector, it has basically flatlined and has even gone backwards since before the pandemic. So, this is tinkering around the edges. Of course, it needs to. We need to find a solution, but I very much doubt whether the present government is going to be responsible for finding that solution.
Yeah, absolutely not. Just to sort of go back to my initial point, I mean, Rachel from accounts now desperately scrabbling around, saying, "Oh, we've got to save here, save there. We've got to get the economy back on track. Growth." She ruined any prospect of growth or a decent economy with that budget last October, didn't she?
Well, and I think Andrew Bailey said that today, didn't he? He said that the problems partly caused by that budget, of course, were a huge drag on growth. So, £9 billion in pay increase, for heaven's sake, for the public sector. She hiked borrowing, she hiked taxes. Of course, that's going to cause...
And now we're all paying the price, and we will for a long time to come. But Robert Taylor, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure. Next up, Kinsey Schofield on the Royals.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the phones in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so. So the floor will be open to you. 03444991000. What do you think about Keir Starmer's cloak and dagger secret trip back to Southport where the people hate him? Why was it secret? We understand he went to talk to grieving victims' relatives. What's wrong with that? It's a decent thing to do. I mean, perhaps they feared an angry protest. But you can't control the news in terms of the movements of the leader of this nation. Unfortunately, he is the leader of this nation. Why are they so upset? Why is Downing Street upset? Is it because as soon as you mention Keir Starmer and Southport, the whole spectre of shame descends? Because that's where he lied to the people, pretended there was no terrorist element to those awful murders. He just lied, and then accused us all of being far-right thugs. Because we're a bit worried about the migrant crisis. Is it because Southport and Keir Starmer always add up to bad headlines, so they tried to do this secretly? How did that work out for you? 03444991000. And also I want to find out what you think about the Pakistani lady who stayed in Britain after her 5-month visa expired, breaking our laws, making her a criminal. She's been given £100,000 compensation. She's still here. We've now given her refugee status, but we've given her £100,000 because we treated her like a criminal. Well, she was a criminal. She is a criminal. She broke our laws. That's a crime. She's a criminal. She gets 100 grand for that. Not to mention the Gambian rapist who did 6 years in a British jail, came out. He's still here because at one point, after he finished his sentence, we put him in a deportation centre, ready for deportation. He went to court and said, well, you know, I shouldn't have been in a deportation centre. That's wrong. That's against my human rights. The judge agreed. He's got a 6-figure sum, substantial sum, more than £100,000. He's a rapist. And then we didn't deport him. Instead, we gave him 100,000. 03444991000. Sharon Davis's points. Why can't we have fair sport here in Britain, like Donald Trump just sorted out for America? Women compete against women in women's sports. Women no longer in America compete against men pretending to be women, or men who say they're women, or men who identify as, or it doesn't make them women. They do not compete against females anymore in America. It's just basic fairness, basic common sense. Why can't we have it here in Britain? 03444991000. And finally, that case we were just relaying to you, the case of Oliver Smith, the 33-year-old autistic guy with a mental age of 10, who now has to do a 16-week course to sort of correct his behaviour online and to examine his political outlook. Because he posted some nasty words about Keir Starmer on Instagram. He's got a mental age of 10. If he doesn't do this course, the police have told him, you'll be in court, you'll be tried, and he faces a criminal conviction and obviously a punishment. He's got a mental age of 10. Where's the common sense in this, as I keep saying? Is this Britain or North Korea? 03444991000. Now, time for our royal section. We've got lots to talk about this week, we sure as hell have. So a warm welcome to the show to royal commentator Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. Yeah, I mean, we were hit like a dump truck by some of these Tom Quinn allegations, but also a full backflip from the judge when it comes to Prince Harry's visa paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to cover both of those. I told you I used to be Tom Quinn's boss. He worked for me at the Daily Mirror, and now he's an eminent royal author. So it just goes to show everybody that works for me does better than I do. You know, Piers Morgan. I was Piers Morgan's boss once.
Oh wow, that's so funny! I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll tell you all about it next week. Anyway, right. Let's talk first, though, before we get to those important stories that you've just mentioned, about Meghan. She's released a video. She's basically turned, in my view, the horror, the tragedy of the Los Angeles fires that so many people died in, so many people lost their homes in, into happy, snappy, cute content for her Instagram site.
Oh, my God.
Well, first of all, let's just watch it with an increasing sense of dismay, if you agree with me. Take it away, Ms. Markle.
Just told that something arrived that I have been waiting for. Oh my God. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, when my husband and I were in Altadena, we went to a community where all the homes were left in ashes. This mom had found a couple things, and as I was talking to her, I turned and looked and I saw this young woman, and I said, "Oh my gosh, how old are you?" She's 15. She lives there. And her mom shared something with me and said that when they came back to see their house for the first time, which was as we were meeting them, that all that she'd been looking for in her home was the t-shirt from the Billie Eilish concert that she had just gone to, that she left in the washing machine or the dryer. And of course, they now see their home and the washing machine and the dryer are ash. They're not there anymore. And so I said, well, I don't know Billie Eilish, but I'm going to figure out how to get you this shirt. So I thought of everybody that I knew, and I made a voice note, and I was like, please, can someone get this voice note to Billie Eilish? Here's what I'm asking. You guys, I don't even know what all of this stuff means, but it's signed for her. Is that a thing? A lunchbox thing? I don't know. This is when I feel really old. Huge thank you, Billie Eilish. This is going to mean so much to her. And honestly, to Adam Levine and Bahati, you guys helped get this over the line. To everyone who's showing up for people in big and small ways to get through what's happened in California, just thank you so much. I'm going to go and email her mom now. Just wanted to share that with you guys.
I barely know what to say, Kinsey, but when is this woman going to get the memo that people do not want to see her turning the Los Angeles tragedy, the catastrophe of California, into good publicity for herself? First of all, her and Harry, as she said 2 or 3 weeks ago, they turn up for a photo op, traipsing through the ashes of people's destroyed homes, enraging many people in Los Angeles, particularly the victims. Justine Bateman, the actress, and Sharon's daughter, Kelly Osbourne, among them, just recording videos to say, well, this is disaster tourism. These two are ghouls. They are tragedy vultures. You know, what on earth do they think they're doing? Grief grifters, they were called. She just sort of closes her ears to that. The next day, she's filmed going back there, you know, generously, oh so generously and filmically, being caught on camera as always, with big bags of supplies for those made homeless. People going, shut up with her, stop doing this, but she won't listen to this, and now she's doing it again. I mean, this is crass and inappropriate. You know, and by the way, you know, why didn't, you know, Billie Eilish doesn't have to send her merchandise to Meghan. She could have sent it directly to the girl. You know, and the whole premise of this is somehow or other that the mother is distraught about losing her home, as you would be, but worse than that, she's lost her washing machine, and in which was a Billie Eilish T-shirt that her 15-year-old daughter liked. You know, I would imagine that woman probably wasn't that bothered about the T-shirt, and I wouldn't imagine that a sensible 15-year-old would be either. I mean, you know, talk about over the top. Oh, look. I mean, she's so tone deaf. I mean, if you're watching Meghan, just stop this. Stop humiliating yourself. It's awful to watch, isn't it?
I mean, I really thought just reimagine the beach video where we could see the 2025 written in the sand multiple times. So imagine how she looks so frazzled, and she's like, you know, running her hands through her hair and trying to make it look authentic and chaotic. Imagine how many times that was shot. Realistically, knowing how many times she shot the beach video with the 2025 written in the sand. You know, you don't have to announce everything nice that you do for other people, and you certainly don't have to name drop multiple celebrities along the way. She is so insecure and so desperate to be liked. She is so desperate to feel like she is in the circle, and she reeks of it. And it's hard to take anything she does over the next few days, and that's including Invictus, as anything sincere, when you know that her relationship with Netflix really relies on the success of this show coming out in March. It feels like even that pathetic video of this person's entire house burned down. I got them some Billie Eilish merch.
Sorry, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
I know.
It's just so crass.
Yeah, it feels like it's all in preparation to promote. I'd like to take the ordinary and make extraordinary. I like to make people feel special. Yeah. Well, you're giving them your house in Portugal might make them feel a little bit more special than the Billie Eilish merch, Meghan Markle. But it all feels like it's in promotion for her show, and that just feels icky and dirty.
Yeah. So why is she filming them? Why is she taking the LA fires and turning it into content for her Instagram account? Content that, of course, makes her look good. You know, in Meghan's world, good deeds must not only be done, they must be seen to be done. Look at me. Look at me being wonderful. Aren't I wonderful? Not particularly, Meghan. Quite the opposite, actually. But the reason she's doing this is to try to escape the shackles of Vanity Fair's 8,000-word report that labelled her a dreadful bully who reduced her staff to a traumatic state, so much so that one of them had to go into long-term therapy, following on from the bullying allegations in The Hollywood Reporter last September. 12 former employees, one current actually, all saying that she was a tyrant in high heels who reduced staff to tears, to grown men to tears, prone to 5 a.m. tantrums, all of this, plus the bullying allegations. So basically, back in Britain when she was working here. So basically, she's trying to blot that out and say, no, I'm lovely. Well, good luck with that. She's toxic in Hollywood. But the reason she's trying to do that, as you quite rightly say, March the 4th, out comes Meghan with Love. And as you can work out, while the people all over the world, America, Britain, all over the world, struggling in the cost of living crisis, will be heartened to tune in to Meghan with Love to find out how to make ladybird-shaped canapes. I mean, she is so out of touch, it's almost tragic, isn't it?
It's unfortunate, but I think that the show is one thing, but to try to market yourself off of somebody's worst day and worst period of their life is really just, and I can't comprehend it whatsoever. You need to move on from this, Meghan. You need to, unless they're going to do something significant and plan a big gala or a big benefit or something that would make a sincere impact in the same way that Kevin Costner does this event every year for first responders in the Santa Barbara area. Unless they can do something to that extent and use the platform that the British royal family presented them on a silver platter, neither one of those individuals earned their position. I think that they just need to move on from milking other people's tragedy because it looks vulgar and crass. And I'm surprised that somebody hasn't sat her down and said, we're changing your Instagram password. You can no longer have access to it.
I mean, I suspect that, to be fair to the publicists and the PRs that she employs, I suspect they probably have told her, you know, be a bit careful here. But you know what she's like. She won't listen to anyone. She thinks she knows what she's doing. The tragedy is she doesn't. Let's park Meghan there for the time being. And we'll come on to her history when she was at the Palace in Britain a little later in terms of this new book by Tom Quinn. But first, let's talk about a more pressing issue, perhaps, for the gruesome twosome up there in Montecito. This visa crisis of Harry is getting real. We know that the Heritage Foundation, Niall Gardner, by the way, the director of the Heritage Foundation, came onto my show on Monday to say that on Wednesday they would be returning to court to apply for the details of Harry's residency visa application to live in America to be made public on the basis that subsequent to that visa application, he wrote in his book that he was a keen smoker of cannabis, a keen used cocaine, and a keen user of magic mushrooms. These are all illegal drugs, and you shouldn't have taken any drugs when you come to America. And if you put that on your visa application, why was he allowed in? And if he pretended he didn't take drugs, then he lied. And that is a federal offence, lying on a visa application. But Joe Biden, crawl ass that he was, he said, oh no, he's safe, he can stay here forever. Donald Trump says, I'm not going to protect him. So the reality is now, after the court case yesterday, a judge made it pretty clear that most of the details on Harry's visa application could well now soon be made public. Now, if that is the case, and Donald Trump is true to his word, Harry's days in America may be numbered.
Oh, I mean, that is the conversation that's happening here. Even when I try to pump the brakes and say, look, I know that Melania, our first lady, is very close to King Charles. They're pen pals. I don't know if they want to jeopardize that relationship. The media I talk to over here want to blow past that as quickly as possible and say, well, but Donald Trump said this. Yes, he's very tough on immigration. Prince Harry very well could be the poster boy for the toughest president on immigration, to boot a member of the royal family. It is one of the most significant immigration cases we've seen in the United States. It involves a prince and a Hollywood actress. There's no way in hell Meghan Markle's going to return to the UK. So there's all these questions about where do they go from here? How does that negatively affect her business? I'm being asked. And I was like, I don't think it affects her business as much as it affects her marriage.
What business?
Yeah, exactly. Because she doesn't want to go back to the UK. And Prince Harry has gone back several times solo. So, yeah, I mean, I think, though, that it's incredibly interesting that once the Trump administration is back in charge, this Trump-appointed judge who had private correspondence with Biden's administration before making his determination has suddenly changed his mind now that Trump is back in charge. So it makes you wonder, and I'm not accusing him of anything, but was his last decision, his last judgment, based on any sort of politics coming from the Biden administration? What did they say to him in the secret correspondence that the Heritage Foundation is trying to get access to that made him deny the Heritage Foundation this access? He has changed his tune. He's saying, now I think I'm going to allow you to see it. What changed?
Niall Gardner put it that, as you say in America, there's a new sheriff in town, and that changes everything. And Niall was saying they're very confident that they will at last get this information. It will be made public to the American people. And if he lied on his visa application, as Donald Trump said, I ain't going to protect him. That means he has to be kicked out. Interesting times. Now, before you go, Kinsey, there's a new book out, as I say, by an old friend of mine, Tom Quinn. It's basically about the servants who work at the British palaces, what they see and what they hear. And you sent me quite a long excerpt, which was actually an extremely good read. Sounds to me as if Tom's found, some very good sources. What are the takeaways of it in terms of Meghan?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways for me was this idea. I don't completely agree that Prince William and Prince Harry's hostility towards each other began to develop because of Meghan Markle's cuddliness, hugging, and physicalness when it comes to Prince William. That's what Tom Quinn says. Because Prince Harry himself says the hostility developed because of Prince William accusing Meghan of being a bully. However, I do believe the flirting allegations, which Tom Quinn mentions here, that because Meghan was so affectionate towards Prince William, hugging him every time she saw him, kissing him on the face, every time she saw him. It made Prince William uncomfortable. It made the king uncomfortable, and Catherine. And the book says that the servants were gossiping, saying that it was inappropriate. They felt like Meghan was flirting with Prince William. I do believe that. We've heard, bits and pieces of that over the last few years. But I disagree that is where the issue started with William and Harry. I think William was like, actually, your wife's a jerk. Like, I think that's really what that was
Yeah,
about.
well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, and he said he advised Harry not to marry her, and that's when they began to fall out in no uncertain terms. But there are interesting snippets in it that Harry was regarded by the servants as a nice guy, insofar as, rather than just order them around, he always said, oh, would you mind doing this? Would you mind? She turned up. And I'm not sure if this is an American attitude.
It's not, because I say to people, would you mind doing this? And I'm paying them.
Well, what the book says, though, is that she came up with this attitude: we pay you. I don't have to be nice to you. I just issue you orders, and you have to obey them. So she brought that into the royal houses. But I loved some of the details that Harry. The reason they're so different, Harry and Meghan, is that Harry, like all the royals, doesn't really care about possessions and houses and things like that, because they've always had loads of possessions, palaces all over the world. They don't really get materialism because they've got everything they'll ever need from the moment they're born. They never have to worry about money. They never have to worry about houses or anything like that. And so she came over saying, why is Nottingham Cottage so small? Why are we in this small cottage? Harry didn't even look, well, it's all right, isn't it? He didn't care.
Yeah.
But she sort of stomped around, getting everybody more and more fed up. And he became more difficult in the process, and is still in.
Yeah, he had no idea he was the spare until she said, "You're the spare," is what they said. Also, really quickly, I know I loved the line about how Meghan expected to marry a billionaire and she got a millionaire. She was like disappointed in that. Like, oh my gosh.
What's the book called again, Kinsey? It's called Yes, Ma'am.
The book is called Yes, Ma'am: The Secret Life of Royal Servants.
Yeah, and then one other little snippet that I really liked. One servant saying that the royals are like babies. If one of them gets a gold pen or a new car, they all want one.
Well, I would.
Yeah, I guess so. The thing is, you've got to remember, see, for all her faults, Meghan sort of comes from the real world, and Harry doesn't come from the real world. Harry comes from a world that the rest of us can't begin to imagine. And that is why he's now lost all interest in Meghan's pursuit of Hollywood fame and fortune. He just doesn't care. He wants to go on pretend royal tours and shake hands, doesn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. But they do say it would take him 2 weeks to get his trousers on by himself. So I think that's important to note.
Well, I understand, actually, in fairness to him, that he's learned to cope on his own far more now, and it now only takes him a week to get his trousers on. So things are getting better. Things are getting better. Good for you, Harry. Kinsey, great stuff yet again. We will talk again soon. Kinsey Schofield, their royal commentator over there in LA. We better go straight to break. When we come back, your messages, your phone calls, you know what we're talking about. 0344 499 1000. Let's do it.
in every department, it's a bit like this. The civil servants go, okay, well, here's our overall budget. And the minister's like, okay, but you can't touch the big stuff. And so the civil servants go off and they find the small stuff. And then you get toxic stories about, government proposes cutting special rail transport for veterans and things like that. And it all adds up. So actually, whilst I fully support the government's objectives here, Rachel Reeves needs to be clear that this is not just a civil service problem.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Isabel Oakeshot's just sent me a story. I think I'll alert it to you. You're going to love it. The Navy, the Royal Navy, will now, from now on, allow officers, only officers, I guess, to wear saris in a diversity overhaul of a uniform policy. So cultural identity should not be mixed with military dress. So the Navy is going to allow officers to wear saris. So there you go. Why? I'm sure sort of Asian people wouldn't particularly want to wear saris if they're in the Navy. Well, what's that for? It's going to make it look a bit silly, won't it? I mean, it's like sort of saying if you're a Muslim officer or a Muslim female officer, you wear a burqa. I mean, that wouldn't work either, would it? Saris in the Navy. 0344 499 1000. A few notes before we go to the phones. This is from Andrew. I kind of get where he's coming from. Very terse, short, crisp note. Dear Kevin, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's from Andrew in Herne Hill. I think you speak for all of us there, Andrew. This is, I liked this one. This is from Fern in Glasgow. We have 14 years, says Fern, of Tory lies. And still, after getting rejected by the population, they give us more lies in an attempt to get back into power, just so they can continue where they left off. Never Tory, never again. I think that is a really good point. So many people feel like that. Sorry, 14 years, you lied, you deceived. We ain't forgiving you. We aren't forgiving you. So your thoughts, 0344499 1000. What else we got here? This is from John in Hampshire. I don't know what is going on in this country. A rapist gets a load of money. What a joke. He should have someone like me on him, if you like. Someone who will see he suffers and the same treatment of the Southport Starmer and his government cover-up. He is a beep and a beep. He wrote that, not me. So he censored himself, but with you, John. That's John in Hampshire. Let's go to the phones. Thank you very much for all your messages. I've got a lot, but I haven't really got time to read too many of them. I'll try and do a few more. And we've only got one WhatsApp voice note, I think. One that we can play out. We got a lot of voice notes, right, by the way. Keep on sending them. I don't mind. They're very funny. But we get quite a few that aren't really broadcastable on a family show like this. But what the hell? They're funny for us. But try and keep them clean, then we can play them out. Now, let's go to the calls. And who better to start our phone session with than our old friend Tarquin from London. Hi, Tark.
And the 2025 SUNY Award for Radio Excellence goes to Mr. Kevin,
Yeah, that'll be the day. Let me tell you something, Tarquin. I've had a long career in journalism, and the principal distinguishment of my career is it has always been steadfastly award resistant.
Kevin!
Do you know what? I've never... I mean, you know, I've been quite a prominent journalist for a long... I've never even been nominated for an award. People all over the country going, yeah, big surprise. Anyway, let's talk about civil servants. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I think just because you and I are of the same decade, really, era. I remember in 2010, don't you, Kevin, that we had the same old platitudes then. It was Cameron and Osborne were going about, oh, we'll have the bonfire of the Quangos.
That's right, the bonfire of the Quangos. And what did they do? They created a lot more Quangos, so the bonfires would have to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's right.
But they never did build the bonfires, and they never set fire to them. Quangos upped and upped and upped, and they continue to get more and more in number.
Absolutely. So this whole destruction of the Uniparty needs to include the destruction of the blob too, because it's just getting beyond a joke now, isn't it?
Well, as I said earlier, you know, here's an idea. Make them go to work. Make them turn up at the office. If you don't turn up at the office, you're sacked.
Absolutely.
That would bring about some efficiencies. But when you see a government, you know, as you quite rightly say, we saw it with Cameron and Osborne, that starts going, we're going to make massive savings. We're going to have a look at Whitehall. We're going to have a look at civil servants. It means they are utterly desperate and they've run out of other ways to save money. A great way to save money would be to do something about the 9,300,000 working age people in this country who are not working, millions of whom are on massive benefits for the rest of their lives. We have a system now where people in their 20s can be assessed on the phone to never have to work again and be paid benefits for the rest of their 40 years working life. It's bizarre, it's absurd, and it is crippling us economically.
And quite how Rachel from Accounts Hair by Lego can actually say anything like, oh, I meant to entrepreneurialism. I mean, Rupert Lowe, the brilliant Rupert Lowe said, I think it was in some YouTube interview I heard him today say that, you know, this whole sort of situation is that they claim to be into enterprise and supporting a business. They do the polar opposite, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly right, exactly right. Listen, Tarquin, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll be around tomorrow night with Pete Barnes. Why don't you give us a call then? Then we can have a real knockabout conversation for a Friday night to kick the weekend off with a storm. So how about that, yeah? Are we on? He's gone. He's gone. Anyway, he will ring up tomorrow, I promise. It's always good to talk to him. Always good to talk to Tarquin. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do now, because I've got a couple of breaks to go. We'll go to break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Mark in, of all places, Vienna. So there you go. Good night, Vienna. That next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Great, whizzing back to the phones in just a second. Got a great message from Roger. Hi, Kev. I overstayed my visa in the States by a whole year. When the authorities caught me, I was given 3 options. 1, pay $35,000. 2, 2 years in jail. 3, leave in 6 hours. I chose option 3. That's how to do it, isn't it? I'll tell you what, Roger, if you'd have been here in this country, you probably could have said, if they said get out in 6 hours, that's against my human rights. Can I have £100,000 compensation, please? Yes, you can. Let's make it 150,000, eh? That's how to do it. America always knows how to do things properly, particularly now Trump's in charge. We know how to do everything wrong. Terry says, he's in Darwin, he says, we should name these stupid moronic judges and tell everyone who they are and shame them. These are these judges who say, oh, the human rights, so you should never have been detained in a deportation centre. The poor rapist, that poor Gambian rapist, here's £150,000. Oh, thank you, Your Honour. You really are a man of great wisdom, a man of letters. Thank God you've got this important job. These morons, these judges are morons. 03444991000. Right, let's go to Vienna. I believe I'm right in saying that's in Austria. And talk to Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Kev. Here's Mark from Vienna.
Yeah, a new caller. You're always like a new caller. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I've got a few things to say. So I thought England would be a proud country, but it isn't anymore.
Good point, Mark. Good point. And that is an astute observation from an outsider. Go on.
And the other thing is, the gruesome twosome, how you refer to them, did they throw their dignity into the Pacific, or what are they going to do?
Did they throw their what into the Pacific?
Their dignity.
Oh yeah, they got no dignity. They ran out of that like donkeys years ago. Meghan, I mean, she's a sort of dignity bankruptcy area. I mean, that video she's just made, I mean, God, it's amazing. Well, it's the opposite of amazing. It's just horrible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I'm just watching you over YouTube because we don't get talkTV in Austria.
Well, yeah, but you can watch us on YouTube. And what makes you so interested in the British scene?
Yeah, because my mum is English.
Oh, great.
My mum is English, and she lives here in Austria. Mm-hmm. And so that's the fun fact.
Does your mother listen or watch as well?
Yeah, she's watching. I showed her the channel to watch, and yeah, we're.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Excellent.
And could you do me a favour? Could you say to the whole crew, to Mike, to Jeremy, to Kingsley, especially, my greetings from Austria?
I will. I genuinely, I'm seeing Mike tomorrow morning. I will pass them on. And Mark, it's the first time caller. Keep in touch because love to hear from people from Europe. We're not supposed to be in Europe anymore, but you may have noticed we've had a little bit of trouble sealing the terms of our divorce. So we are still stuck pretty much as part of the EU, and so are you, which is a nightmare. Mark, good call. Great to hear from you. Keep in touch, and I'll pass on your regards to the rest of the team. Thank you very much for ringing, and my best to your mother. Let's go straight now to Norfolk and talk to Jackie. Hello, Jackie. What would you like to say?
Sorry, I was washing up.
All right, what I said while you were washing up was, what would you like to say?
Sorry.
That's all right.
I want to ask a question. I'll try and be brief.
No, go for it.
How can you be an illegal immigrant if the RNLI or the Border Force pick you up and bring you over to our shores? How's that illegal?
Well, I mean, it's not technically illegal what the RNLI do, although a lot of people, this is the Royal National Lifeboat Institute, that lifeboats, a lot of people, including Reform, Nigel Farage, say they're like a taxi service. But the migrants who arrive here, this is what I always maintain, this is what they say in Australia, and they're now saying in America. You break into our country, you come across the channel in an illegal vessel, and you come here without any documents, you attempt to get into the country illegally, you're not going to be allowed to stay. You're a criminal, and we're going to deport you. But we don't do that, Jackie.
Yeah, I know, but we go and pick them up and say, hello, come in.
Well, we do that. That's the problem.
How is that illegal? How have we got all these illegal migrants? And I'm not going to take up more of your show, because whilst I was listening and waiting to sort of to say something, saris for the Royal...
Oh, yeah, do you like that? Saris are now going to be part of the Royal Navy uniform, part of the diversity drive.
Sorry, Kevin, sorry. I'm going to have to go and eat my dinner now, because I think, dear God...
Yeah, dear God, that's it. Well, listen, Jackie, I'm glad you finished the washing up. Enjoy your dinner, and that was good to talk to you. You ring me any old time. Jackie in Norfolk. Shall we go to break now? And when we come back, we'll talk to Andy in Grantham. Andy, stay where you are.
In every department, it's a bit like this. The civil servants go, okay, well, here's our overall budget. And the minister's like, okay, but you can't touch the big stuff. And so the civil servants go off and they find the small stuff. And then you get toxic stories about, government proposes cutting special rail transport for veterans and things like that. And it all adds up. So actually, whilst I fully support the government's objectives here, Rachel Reeves needs to be clear that this is not just a civil service problem.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just quickly read a message. This is from Rob in Lincolnshire. He says, I'm at a loss with the two stories you've just had on. Trans men in women's sports and now the story of Oliver, where the people in power in this country have lost any form of common sense at all. It doesn't take a genius to realise that this, on both cases, they have got things wrong. No to trans women, trans men in women's sports, and leave Oliver alone. Yeah, I'll leave Oliver alone. Exactly right. You haven't heard the last of that story, I promise you that. Let's quickly go to the WhatsApp voice notes before we go back to the phones. And the first up is Anna, who wants to talk about the rapist, the Gambian rapist, who was not only not deported, but also given a six-figure compensation sum. Take it away, Anna.
Will Reform UK, hopefully, when they get into power, agree that the first thing we need to do is disband the civil service and change our laws so that in retrospect we can remove scumbag rapists and possibly even retry them, like the one we've just given £100,000 of taxpayers' money for? And that would be wonderful.
Well, I don't suppose a retrial is there. I mean, he was fairly tried, got 6 years, did his time, should then have been deported, but he's still here and he's got a lot of money in his pocket because we gave him substantial compensation because at one point, apparently, we held him in a deportation centre when he should have been in a prison or something rubbish like that. That was against his human rights. Unbelievable. Before we go back to the phones, the last WhatsApp voice note. Sean on the Labour government.
These governments, they're all liars. I don't believe a word any of them say, not even our friend Mr Farage. What we have to do is try and figure out which one is going to be best for our country, even with their lies. For me, that is reform, but it's still difficult to know. They never tell the truth. They tell you what you want to hear. They never act on what they tell you. So as I said, you just got to figure out which one will do the best job with their lies.
I think Sean's making a good point there. I mean, all politicians, you choose the ones you prefer, but they do tend to be professional liars. I mean, that's the whole business of politics, isn't it? You take a set of facts and you twist them to your own political worldview. That's a form of lying. You know, that's what politicians do. Yeah, I mean, you just take the ones you feel are the best. And I guess the most honest. It just looks to me like Reform UK are the ones who are telling it like it is. Labour are just lying through their teeth. The Prime Minister lies. You know, how can you tell when Keir Starmer's lying? His lips move. Lips move. Right, shall we go back to the phones? Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. By the way, before we do, I should tell you, not sure which one will be coming in, but either Andre Walker or Ash will be coming in to tell you what they've got lined up for your show, your entertainment from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. Before one of them comes in, I mean, I'll prepare mentally and you have been warned, but before that happens, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to first Andy in Grantham, who's a new caller. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Kev. Great show.
Thank you. What would you like to say?
Just like to say, I'm a pensioner. I have to pay tax after my free pay of £12,000. My pension is knocked off that.
Yeah.
So you can only earn £1,000 or £2,000 before you pay tax at my age.
Yeah.
Let's get people back to work and tax benefits. Why don't we tax benefits? People get 12, 15, 20, £25,000 of benefits every year, but it's tax-free, which is the equivalent to about a £30,000 wage. Let's tax the benefits.
Yeah, I think it's kind of. I always think it's very weird. You know, about you get a pension and then you get taxed on it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, so as you say, but I didn't know. I mean, you know, it sounds like I'm a sort of holier than thou type, but I've never claimed benefits. So do you know you don't get taxed on them?
You don't get to, well, I've never claimed benefits.
No, but I mean, I take that. I'm not saying that you do, but you know that you don't get taxed on benefits because I didn't realise that.
Yeah, you don't get taxed on benefits. No tax is paid on your benefits, so you can get housing benefit, whatever you get. child allowance, everything is tax-free, and
yeah, well, that's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
So that's why a lot of people won't go back to work.
Yeah,
£20,000 of benefits is equivalent to a £30,000.
So that is a really good point. So once again, that old problem that for too many people, it is more profitable, more financially advantageous. They get more money if they don't work than if they did work. And that has been the sickness in this country now for decades. And government after government, so we're going to stop this. We're going to stop it. You know, so we're going to make sure that you do better if you're working than if you're not working. It's pretty logical. It's that thing, common sense again. But they never ever do it, do they, Andy?
It takes the incentive from working, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. There's no incentive to work. In fact, there's an incentive not to, and that is a form of madness. This country is becoming a basket case. Andy, really good call. Thank you for ringing. Please call me again. Andy in Grantham. Let's go to our friend, Mark in Lincolnshire. Hello, Mark.
Hi there, Kev, mate. You're right tonight.
Yeah, I'm good. What would you like to say tonight?
It was just... you were speaking to Isabel earlier, and she mentioned something that has always been interesting to me, and that's this notion that this problem's here and it's here to stay. And she was referring to the amount of people in the country, the immigrants that are now in the country.
Yeah.
And they're here to stay, blah, blah. That's why the Tories have been really nasty for us and all the rest of it. And she's right in that. The bit she isn't right in is the bit that they're here to stay, because they don't have to be here to stay. It's really, really negative to sit there and say, well, no, you can't do anything about it now. Because this is what Farage says. And this is why I won't vote Reform again, because I'm seeing him more and more as just a standard Tory. That's how he comes across to me, because, you know, he will not commit in any way, shape or form to mass deportations, let alone remigration. And there are policies out there that are perfectly reasonable in ways that you can actually achieve these things. It's just having the will to actually do it. He seems to just want to run scared of the rabid left-wing activists and the media.
Well, I mean, is this fair, Mark? I mean, I always appreciate your points, and I usually agree with you. But I mean, I'm not sure that Nigel Farage has given that much of a sign that he'll just capitulate to our current migrant system. I mean, is Reform UK's popularity, their soaring popularity, a new poll revealed today, they're now 4 points ahead of their nearest rival, Labour. So they are rocketing, and that is based on the fact that they talk a very tough game about the migrant crisis, that they will bring in net zero migration, as they call it. So I'm not quite sure that it's fair to say that Nigel Farage has given an indication that he'll just cave in and capitulate like every other party.
He's already done this, Kev. He's already given interviews where he quite literally says that he doesn't believe mass deportation is anything that's possible. So he's even talking about the 1 to 1.5 million illegals that are in the country that have no right to stay here. And as for the notion of the net zero migration, I think there seems to be a bit of people seem to think that this is some kind of panacea, and it really isn't, because when you actually think about it, the money that he's going to have to play with if he gets into power in 2029 is going to be pretty much the same kind of money he's going to have now, that's floating around now. So in other words, all your services, everything's going to be exactly as broken as it is today, if not worse, after Labour are done. And the issue with that is, with a net zero policy, you're not actually fixing anything. All you're actually doing is basically putting it on hold, because you've still got the same amount of people in the country.
All right, Mark, so what are you saying, that you'd vote Tory or something? Who would you vote for?
Me personally, I mean, I've mentioned this before to you, Kev. I voted Reform last time. I have gone over now to UKIP. That's who I think. I think Nick Tenconi in UKIP. He's offering.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, sure. Okay. I mean, fair point. I think. I mean, these are early days, but I do think Reform are showing some resolve in this area. But there's 4 years to go to the next election. Let's see what's emerged. But Mark, point taken. Great call, as always. Keep in touch. I know you will. That's Mark in Lincolnshire, regular caller. Ash is in the studio. Hello, mate.
All right, have you had a good show? I saw a bit before I came out.
I think we've had a very, very good show. Have you seen this thing about Starmer's visit to
his secret
Southport?
visit. Well, he can't ever go out in public because everyone calls him the W word. I mean, it's not libelous. He is. But
it's a matter of accuracy.
Yeah, and he knows he's going to get a lot of hate, and rightfully so. So he can't. How can you have a prime minister that can't show his face to the public?
The thing about this visit to Southport, as Isabel Oakeshott pointed out, it's quite right. You don't make a big sort of thing of saying the prime minister will be here, 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 here.
Yeah.
That's a security risk.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't have been so. Downing Street are furious that we've revealed it.
Yeah, because they're like.
How can you be
dictators.
secret about the prime minister?
And why? It's no problem. She revealed it after it happened, and she checked with Downing Street. So they're just been